I had just bought a house. It was an abandoned fixer-upper, but it had potential. The previous owners, old family friends, had to sell it quickly due to some financial troubles. They hadn't been living in the country for nearly 3 years. And I was looking for a bargain, and I found one in the middle of the capital city. The sale was sealed, and I moved in within days. The place was rough, no gate, the main door was padlocked with cheap lock, but the price was too good to pass up. The first day, I noticed something strange. Someone's bike was parked in my garage. This wasn't a mistake. The garage was my property now. Without hesitation, I moved the bike onto the street and immediately got a gate installed. I thought I had resolved the issue until later that day, an angry man started banging on my gate. I watched from my window as he ranted, pacing back and forth for what felt like an eternity. 15 minutes later, he grabbed his bike and stormed off. I knew right then that the neighborhood would be trouble. This wasn't going to be a quiet life. Days passed. Aside from a few people blocking my gate, I had nothing major to complain about. But things took a turn when I was in the shower one morning. I noticed the water pressure felt low. It wasn't just a little dip. It was significantly lower. And then I heard it, the familiar hum of a water pump. My neighbor's water pump, to be exact. Now, this neighbor, he was an old man who lived in a 3-story house. The kind of guy who was always ready with complaints. My family friends, the previous owners, had warned me he wouldn't be happy about the sale. They even mentioned how angry he had been when they told him they were selling. They were right. At first, I shrugged it off. Old people can be stubborn. But then I started connecting the dots. I was hearing the pump running at odd hours. And my water pressure continued to dip when it was running. There was no way it was a coincidence. I thought, could it be siphoning my water? I started paying more attention. I would check the water pressure multiple times a day. Sure enough, the pressure would go up right after the pump turned off. And then it clicked. The old man wasn't just complaining. He was stealing water from my lines. Now, let me be clear. Water in my country is cheap. Even with 3 dogs, a car to wash every week, and a garden to water, my bill was only $5 a month. So, it wasn't about the money. It was the principle of it. Here was this entitled old man walking into my property whenever he felt like it and siphoning my resources without paying a cent. It made my blood boil. I could have just confronted him. I could have called the police. But where's the fun in that? I wanted to teach him a lesson he would never forget, and that's when the plan started forming. The key to this plan was simplicity. No need for confrontation. No need to break the law. I didn't even need to lift a finger. All I had to do was turn off my water supply at the mains. It was clever. His water pump needed to be fed by my water. Without it, the pump wouldn't work. It would run and run, drawing electricity, but with no water to fill his tank. The system would eventually burn out. I waited for the perfect moment. On Monday, just 4 days ago, I heard the familiar sound of his pump whirring. I smiled to myself. This was it. I switched off the water supply, and the game began. The pump kept running, trying to fill a tank that had no water coming in. It was only a matter of time before the motor would overheat and burn out the wiring. What I didn't expect was a collateral damage. At 3 a.m., I heard the noise from next door, a loud argument, shouting. His tenants were freaking out. The house had no water or power, and they were furious. One of them even moved out 2 days later. As for the old man, he was in for a world of trouble. The power in his house was shot, and the wiring was destroyed. His tenants filed complaints with the police. Under our tenant protection laws, cutting off essential services like water and power is a big no-no. He was fined $500, a huge amount of money in our country. To make matters worse, he had to refund his tenant security deposits. And now, he couldn't rent out the place until the wiring was fixed. His only source of income had been his tenants. And now, he was forced to move in with his daughter because he couldn't afford to live alone anymore. The sweetest part? He had no idea I was the one who caused all this. He came by my gate a few days later, asking if I had turned off the water. I just gave him an innocent shrug and said, yeah, my tank had a leak, So I turned it off until the plumber could come by. The look on his face? Priceless.